Welcome to On the Moneyline, a podcast by MMA Play 365. I'm Newsome, and I'm here to break down UFC Vegas 110, which goes down this weekend. We're back in the Apex as well. It feels like a long time, at least to me anyway, that we've been in the Apex, which, of course, it is a good thing. But then I do love the Apex events if they are minimal due to they bring something different. You know, you can hear the corners, the shots and the strikes seem a little bit louder as well. So yeah, I don't hate the UFC going back to the Apex. If we get one Apex event a month, I think that's perfect for me. But yeah, look, we've got UFC Vegas 110 here. It's a good card as well. Like, from a paper perspective, there's a lot of violence on this card. I think there's some really good matchups as well. Now, just before we move any further, I am a little bit under the weather this week, so I'm going to do something a little bit different with these breakdowns. So I'm actually going to do more of a quick fire breakdown where I'm not going to go into as much depth. I'll give you a quick reason for the pick and prediction, and then I'll move on to the next fight. So it'll take a lot less time than the normal podcast. And look, for some listeners that listen week in, week out, this might be a method you prefer. If it is a method you prefer, once you've listened to the podcast and once you've heard the breakdown of, or the brief quick fire breakdown of every fight, then, you know, drop a comment into the YouTube channel if it's something you prefer. If you don't prefer it, then that's fine. You can let me know as well, and we'll go back to the long form podcast once I'm a little bit better. But yeah, for this podcast, for this event and this breakdown of the card, it is going to be much more quick fire. Now, just before we get into those quickfire breakdowns, as always, if you do want to jump into the action this weekend, then you can do so at MMAplay365.com. We are on a little bit of a cold streak right now, both myself as the handicapper and the AI as well, although the AI is still outperforming me, which is, well, I don't know how to see it as a good thing or a bad thing, but that's the facts. But yeah, look, we are on a little bit of a cold streak, but this is coming off a massive hot streak as well. Like, I didn't really talk about it too much, but, you know, the hot streak lasted a few months, you know, event after event, me smashing it, Bay's AI smashing it, and eventually, you know, everything does come full circle. You know, you go on a hot streak and then there is going to be a couple of losing events coming up, and then, you know, on the flip side to that, after a few losing events, there's definitely another hot streak coming because we know exactly what we're doing. I've been doing this for almost 10 years now, so yeah, it's not my first rodeo. And as for Bay's AI has been running for about 4 or 5 years as well, so that's much more consistent in regards to going from massive hot streaks to massive cold streaks than what it is from a human perspective. But yeah, look, on a little bit of a cold streak, these winning events are coming though, so make sure that if you want to jump onto those hot streaks, something will be coming very soon. I'm very sure of that. Everything's super affordable at MMA Play 365 though, so the service will never break the bank. It's just $5 for one event, $10 a month, or it's $99 for an entire 12 months. So there's always going to be value there, and we've got something for every type of gambler as well. Also, the Bay's AI and the Handicapper betting advice comes within one betting subscription also. So remember, if you want to jump into the action this weekend from a betting perspective, then make sure you hit up MMAplay365.com. Now, with the intro and the promo out the way, let's get down to breaking some fights down, like I said, in a quick fire fashion. In the main event, 5 rounds, Steve Garcia versus David Onama. Now, for me, this is a really good main event. It's got violence written all over it as well, like a real violence fight. Both have got brutal knockout power, and both are deserving of this opportunity. They're probably one step away from making that big leap into the top end of the division. So, you know, big rewards and consequences here for the winner and loser. I'm kind of leaning towards Steve Garcia. Steve Garcia, I think, is, from a form perspective, the run that he's on is crazy. Like, he was knocking everybody out fight after fight after fight, step ups in competition. But for me, it just seems like Steve Garcia is also starting to improve that fight IQ as well. So against the Calvin Kattar last time out, he was probably pretty aware he wasn't going to go in there and just be able to smash Kattar out of there in round 1 like he's done with numerous other opponents. So we saw a 3-round approach from him, much smarter with his shot selection, and it shows that there's a massive development in Steve Garcia's game and the fight IQ. David Onama is still going to be a very dangerous opponent. I'm not going to be shocked if he wins this fight either, but like I say, for me, I just feel that Garcia's making the right developments as a fighter. So not only has he got that massive power, but he's now being able to pace himself and be effective as a round scorer as well, and that's what I really like. So for those reasons, I'm picking Steve Garcia to win this fight. And in the next fight, the co-main event, we've got Waldo Cortez Acosta versus Ante Delija. And this is a fight in the heavyweight division that I actually really like. It's very interesting that Ante Delia's coming straight into this fight in a co-main event against somebody that is now a UFC vet. Like, Cortez Acosta's fought a lot in the UFC. He's a fighter that I've never really been high on, but I'm always open to a fighter and to actually anybody to really change my mind if you give me enough evidence and enough proof that changing my mind is the right thing to do. And Cortez Acosta's doing that. I know it kind of didn't go his way against Pavlovich, but man, he looked good. He's another fighter that, like I've just said with Garcia, that is making massive developments in his game, has got real good fight IQ. But what I like about Cortez Acosta in this specific fight is, look, Ante Delija is an absolute machine. He hits super hard, and when it's time for him to go, it's like he throws him fast forward, which at his weight at heavyweight is just unbelievable to see. But what I think Ante Delija's issue is going to be is if anybody can get past that, the weathering of the storm of the big hard shots and then the fast forward of, 10 punch combinations in rapid fire sort of progression, like, it's going to be difficult for Delija to win those sort of fights if anybody gets through that storm. And I kind of think that with Waldo Cortez Acosta getting through the Pavlovich test, a fighter that, look, he's not the same as Delija. Pavlovich doesn't throw like the heat and the speed and the power of combinations that Delija throws, but Pavlovich has got one of the hardest punches in the division. So the fact that Cortez Acosta has done 3 rounds with Pavlovich and didn't really look in too much trouble from a chin perspective, I like the durability of Cortez Acosta to be able to get through any crazy storm that Delija throws at him. And I think Cortez Acosta is going to put another good fight IQ performance on where he's just picking apart. There might be a storm to weather. I think he weathers that storm. Delija realizes it's much tougher than he initially thinks, and then Cortez Acosta starts pulling away down the stretch. So for those reasons, I'm picking Waldo Cortez Acosta to win this fight. And in the next fight, we've got Jeremiah Wells versus Themba Gorimbo. Interesting fight stylistically. I think we're going to see a lot of ground action in this fight, and this is the reason I'm leaning towards Jeremiah Wells. A little bit surprised as the underdog. I thought it would be much closer to a pick'em. The thing is with Jeremiah Wells, look, I love these Daniel Gracie black belts. There's Jeremiah Wells, there's Sean Brady, Pat Sabatini. There is Andrei Petrosky as another one as well. They are legit BJJ black belts under Daniel Gracie. And look, when Themba Gorimbo's come across a fighter that's going to be able to match him physically and has also got a real dangerous grappling game, he comes up short. So the AJ Fletcher fight came up short, got submitted. Vicente Luque fight came up short, got submitted. Where Themba Gorimbo will really get through other grapplers, like a Ramiz Brahimaj, for example, is when he's got a big strength advantage. He's a physical guy. You can tell he's got deceptive strength as well. And Jeremiah Wells is just like a fire hydrant, man. Like, he's massive, he's strong, he's explosive. And I think Gorimbo's going to have a hard time controlling Wells. And if he takes him down, I think Wells has got the jiu-jitsu to get back up to his feet. I think Wells has got the explosive wrestling as well. I think Wells could end up getting on top of Gorimbo. And the bottom line is here, in a grappling fight, it's who do you trust more on top and who do you trust least on bottom. I trust Wells more on bottom against Gorimbo than I do Gorimbo on bottom against Wells. I think Wells will do some dangerous work on top, and I think Gorimbo's going to get got again with this ground style of fighter, like he did against Luque, like he did against AJ Fletcher. So for those reasons, I'm picking Jeremiah Wells to win this fight. And in the next fight, we've got the return of Isaac Dulgarian versus Yadir Delvai. Now, it's an interesting fight because both are real front runners. Dulgarian likes to be the one bullying. Delvai likes to be the one bullying, so something's got to give. So because of that, the reason I like Dulgarian in this fight is because if they meet in the middle, then Delvai has done half the job of Dulgarian in regards to closing the distance, because Dulgarian's an elite level wrestler, all-American D2, like he's a legit wrestler, but he's also got the grappling to go with it, and he can also throw hands as well. So if they do meet in the middle, it's kind of going to be a little bit hairy from a Dulgarian perspective, especially with him being the favourite, because Delvai also throws with heat. But when the wrestling and grappling starts going, which I'm assuming the wrestling and grappling is going to play a factor in this fight, then I think Dulgarian's going to show that his level's above Delvai there. Now, Delvai also likes to mix in wrestling within his game as well. But the thing is here, if he starts the wrestling game against Dulgarian and starts trying to play wrestling, I think there's only one winner there as well. I ultimately just see Dulgarian potentially early in this fight. It might be a little bit tough for him, but once he gets the wrestling going and gets on top of Delvai, I think Dulgarian's going to do some good work, potentially get him out of there. I still think the Christian Rodriguez fight was borderline a robbery. So for me, Dulgarian has been in there with other... Because look, Christian Rodriguez is a good striker, good wrestler, good grappler. He's the full package as well at this level in the UFC. And Dulgarian, for me, did a good job against him. And I think Christian Rodriguez is a better version of Delvai. So, yeah, look, I like Dulgarian here. I'm picking Isaac Dulgarian to win this fight. And in the next fight, we've got Charles Radke versus Daniel Frunze. Now, I think Charles Radke gets a lot of shit from the MMA community. I think that at a certain level in the UFC, he's a good fighter. Like, there's definitely a ceiling there with Radke. I don't expect him to hit the top 15 of the division or, you know, maybe top 20 or even get that close to like, okay, well, he's fighting now and if he wins, he gets into the top 15. But outside of that, he's a real problem. Like, he can strike, he's got power, he can switch stances, he's got decent wrestling, decent grappling, he's huge for the division as well. So I think at a certain level, Radke's a really tough fight for some fighters and some opponents. Now, Daniel Frunze is a fighter that I'm not sold on just yet. Maybe he can change my mind later down the line. But for right now, for me, this is a fight that Radke that's what I've just mentioned. At a certain level, he's going to be a very tough fighter to beat, and this is that certain level. I think Daniel Frunze is going to come up short pretty much wherever he goes here. Now, you do have to take into consideration this is a fight closer to the bottom end of the division, so, you know, things can happen, fighters can drop the ball, but for me, Radke's got a real good game here for us, again, for this level in the UFC, and I think he's going to be a problem for Frunze. So for those reasons, I'm picking Charles Radke to win this fight. And in the next fight, we've got Alan Nascimento versus Cody Durden. Now, there's no betting lines for this fight yet, so it's going to be interesting to see what they are going to drop at. And by the way, that's no betting lines at the time of 10 to 10 in the morning on Monday in the UK. So I'm assuming Durden's going to open as the favourite. You know, it's 2025, so maybe it's wrong to make assumptions. But yeah, look, Durden's taking this fight on short notice, which makes me a little bit less confident on him than what I would be if this was a full fight camp. But for me, you look at it stylistically, and also, by the way, before we get into it stylistically, I don't think that Cody Durden's the type of fighter to ever be out of the gym, so I'm assuming he's going to be ready to go like all year round. But look, stylistically, I think Cody Durden is the better striker here. I don't even think that's too much of a debate. Alan Nascimento is going to be looking for the takedowns. But again, Cody Durden, for me, has got the better wrestling as well. So I think that Durden could have some success defending the takedowns of Nascimento and potentially even shooting and getting Nascimento down. Like, Nascimento's a firecracker on the mat, so you've always got to mind your P's and Q's on there. But Tagir Ulanbekov took him down and remained relatively safe. I think Cody Durden could do the same thing. And Alan Nascimento on his back will probably play a little bit more than what Durden will if he's put on his back. So for me, if Durden's put on his back, it's going to be, you know, get back up to your feet or sweep reverse. I don't think the sweep reverse is going to be that much of a possibility here because Nascimento's jiu-jitsu is good, but definitely getting back up to your feet. Whereas Nascimento on his back, I think he plays a little bit more, which aids and plays into the game of Durden, running the clock down, winning rounds. So yeah, look, if the fight's on the feet, I think Durden pieces Nascimento up. But when it comes to the grappling, yes, Nascimento is a very good grappler, but Durden's wrestling's better, and I think that's going to be the factor, and that's going to determine whether Durden is on his back for long periods of time or not. I'm going with or not because of that wrestling advantage. So yeah, for me, the pick's Durden. I'm picking Cody Durden to win this fight. And in the next fight, we've got Kevin Christian versus Billy Elikana. Now, this is a fight, again, I don't mean any disrespect, but this is a fight that is on the lower end of the UFC division. Billy Elikana is actually coming off a good win against Ibo Aslan. When I say good win, I mean it wasn't the most entertaining fight, but it was a fight where Elikana was a massive underdog, and he ended up taking that fight. It's something that Bayes AI actually predicted, by the way. Like, Elikana, I think, was between 80 to 90% Bayes AI had him to win that fight, which, you know, we checked with the AI team a few times to make sure that was actually correct, and it came back as it was correct from what the data was telling us. And yeah, massive upset that Bayes AI predicted. But here against Kevin Christian, like, Kevin Christian's coming off the Contender Series. It was a triangle choke win. I'm not sure with Kevin Christian yet. I need to see more of him to be more confident of where his level and ceiling is at the UFC level. So it's not probably not going to be for a couple of fights where I'm super sure about where he's at. But like I say, I do have some question marks. I think he can be got at. I think he's a little bit sluggish on the feet. There's not too much head movement. He does have a nasty grappling game, but again, doesn't really shoot too much from what I've seen, whereas he's kind of banking on opponents to get him down, and then he's the problem. But Billy Elikana, I think, is going to keep this fight on the feet. I think his volume's going to be a little bit better. I think he's a better put together striker, and if Christian's on the back foot with Elikana doing good work moving forwards, then again, if Christian is looking for a takedown here, it's going to be harder to shoot a takedown and complete it when he's on the back foot. So yeah, I do think it's a good fight for Elikana, but I am still on the fence a little bit with Christian to what level he's kind of at. But for at least for now, from a straight pick and prediction perspective, I'm picking Billy Elikana to win this fight. And in the next fight, we've got Timmy Kwamba versus Chang Ho Lee. So this is actually a really good fight against, you know, between two fighters, that are very closely matched and very good everywhere. But I'm leaning towards Timmy Kwamba. I just feel that he's just, again, a slightly better put together fighter here wherever the fight goes. Like, it is going to be super close, it is going to be super competitive, but when you're looking at slight edges and who's the more likely just to steal the round away if they're close, and just be able to deal with different situations in the fight depending on whether it's going from the striking to the wrestling to the grappling, I just think Kwamba's put together just a little bit more. I like the team around him as well. So yeah, I feel like Kwamba is a fighter that is slowly putting it together, and he's going to be a fighter that goes on a run, and I think that run's going to start around now, or at least continue around now. Like I say, it is close and competitive because Chang Ho Lee's also got good striking, good wrestling, good grappling, but I just think Kwamba is the very, very slightly better mixed martial artist here. So for those reasons, I'm picking Timmy Kwamba to win this fight. And in the next fight, we've got UFC newcomer Dante Johnson versus Cedriques Dumas. Now, Dumas is stepping in on short notice for this fight. It's not as short notice as a Cody Durden. I'm sure Dumas has had like maybe 4 or 5 weeks to prepare, and probably already in the gym and training anyway. So yeah, look, Dante Johnson, I mentioned fire hydrants earlier with Jeremiah Wells. This guy is the original fire hydrant. 5'8", and he was fighting at heavyweight, obviously down at middleweight now, where it definitely looks more of his weight class. But man, credit to Dante Johnson. He was up there against heavyweights, knocking them out, and he's a very, very big dude, like very wide, very powerful, very athletic and aggressive coming forwards. I think Dumas might be the better mixed martial art, the more well-rounded mixed martial artist, but the thing is, like, for me, Dumas is going to have to score takedowns in this fight, because if he goes toe-to-toe with Johnson, I think Johnson puts him into the shadow realm. Like, he hits that hard, and I can't imagine him going from knocking big heavyweights out, coming down to middleweight. That power is still going to be there and be very prominent at middleweight. And I think once Dumas feels the first couple of punches, if he's not knocked out, he's going to be very, very hesitant to come forwards, and he's going to be backing off, trying to circle around the cage. Remember, this is the smaller cage as well. I think it's a good fight for Dante Johnson. Even if Dumas starts trying to wrestle and grapple, Dante Johnson's just going to be thick. He's going to be difficult to take down. And yeah, he's just going to be super strong and super physical. So yeah, look, I think it's a good fight for Johnson to cut the cage, to close the distance regularly and consistently. And I think he's going to find something and put Dumas out. So for those reasons, I'm picking Dante Johnson to win this fight. And in the next fight, we've got Ketlin Vieira versus Norma Dumont. Now, for me, it's kind of simple here. We've got somebody that's starting to be consistent with form and somebody that has got inconsistencies within a game. Ketlin Vieira at one point was looking like the absolute goods, good striking, Brazilian national wrestling champion, really good judo, really good jiu-jitsu, but it's kind of just not materialised for Vieira to the point where, look, she can look good in fights, although she missed weight last time out looking good, so, you know, you do have to factor that in, but she's just very inconsistent with her performances. She can look great in some fights, she can look, you know, not so great in other fights. In fights that you think she's going to win, she loses. Then in fights that you think she's going to lose, she wins. So it's like, what version of Vieira is going to turn up on the night? And ultimately, that's the fact that we cannot, or the question that we cannot answer. And that's one of the reasons why I bring in inconsistencies and question marks. Whereas Dumont on the other side, Dumont is more of a consistent fighter. She's more of the form fighter as well, just seems to be putting it together better. I think from a striking perspective, she is going to match and better Vieira on the feet. Then when it comes to Vieira trying to get Dumont down to the mat, look, Dumont can, you know, stuff takedowns. She's a physical girl herself. So for me, I just feel that, yeah, look, it is a close fight, and I do think it's going to be super competitive on both sides. And if we get good Vieira turning up, then I think good Vieira's got every chance of winning this fight. But I just don't have that level of trust in Vieira, just because I don't know what version of her is going to turn up, which leads me on to Norma Dumont. So for those reasons, I'm picking Norma Dumont to win this fight. And in the next fight, we've got Montserrat Conejo versus Alice Ardeline. Now, I don't think Alice Ardeline should be minus 400. I think that's super sketchy. Like, anybody playing Ardeline at minus 400 with a lot of cash behind the bet, I think is a very risky bet. Obviously, if you are looking for the long shot parlays and you want to throw Ardeline in there, then yeah, I'll always get that side of it. But look, from a long-term perspective, you know, playing the game correctly, trying to beat the bookies long-term, then yeah, look, I think minus 400 super sketchy. But Conejo, for me, I just don't know whether she is at the UFC level, and I think we'll probably find out in this fight, because again, it's another one of these fights that's towards the lower end of the division. So if Conejo comes out here and Alice Ardeline ends up looking like the minus 400 and covers a minus 400 price tag, then it's going to kind of answer that question. Conejo for me is a fighter that is aggressive, that will come forwards, that will try and be in your face, but a best side of a game does seem to be that, like the head and arm throws, and then controlling from sort of like a side control position, you know, the scarf hold type of position, if that makes sense. I just don't think it's enough at this level, whereas I think Alice Ardeline's probably slightly better put together from a boxing perspective, a striking perspective overall, just landing nice volume, just being a slightly better put together fighter from the striking perspective. And then when it comes to the wrestling and grappling, I think Conejo, like I say, we know what she's going to try and do from that takedown perspective. If Alice Ardeline's just been working on that, working the defense, then I do think it's a fight that Ardeline should win. But like I say, at minus 400, I just don't think that she covers that price tag, but I do think she wins the fight. For those reasons, I'm picking Alice Ardeline to win this fight. And in the next fight, we've got Phil Rowe versus Seok Hyun Ko. Now, Ko is a fighter that I think surprised a lot of people. Like, he's got big power in his hands, and if you listen to the breakdown before his fight against Oban Elliott, I was saying, look, Oban Elliott's got to mind his P's and Q's. The guy's got big power, but I thought Oban Elliott was probably going to be the better fighter from the wrestling and grappling perspective. But man, Ko ended up looking like Korean Habib out there. Like, took Oban Elliott down a bunch of times, controlled topside, and you're looking at him thinking, well, this guy that's doing good from a wrestling and grappling perspective has got big power in his hands. So Ko's a fighter that I've definitely got my eye on. On the flip side with Phil Rowe, again, just like I've said with Vieira, it's like it's come down to a bit of a trust issue with Phil Rowe. Like, he's got a lot of skills, he's got a lot of talent, he's a good striker, he's tall, he's long for the division, he's massive, his frame's massive for the division, but he's also got really tricky grappling as well, good submissions off his back, and like, he's a well put together fighter, Phil Rowe, but he just doesn't have the consistency inside the cage. And it's like, fair enough, he has taken a step down in competition from, you know, your Jake Matthews of the world, your Neil Magny's of the world. Like, Ko's not quite at that level just yet, so this is a step down in competition for Rowe. But I just find it hard to trust somebody that he could have won that Magny fight. He could have won the Jake Matthews fight as well if he'd just put his foot on the gas just a little bit more, but he didn't. And it's like, what's stopping him? And I can't answer that question. I know he's a well put together fighter. I know he's got good qualities everywhere. But he's just a fighter that, like I say, has just had a number of fights where he's inconsistent, and he's been at a winner's reach and not quite reached out to take the win. And that's the kind of pause that I have. Whereas on the flip side here, we've got Ko, who's got striking power, he's got good wrestling, good grappling. Does he take Rowe down, and does Rowe just play guard and throwing up submissions, not quite getting him, and ultimately just the clock running down and him just slowly, second by second, losing the rounds and then losing the fight? So yeah, that's my concern with Rowe, and because of that, I'm picking Seok Hong Ko to win this fight. In the final fight to break down, we've got Talita Alencar versus Ariane Carnelossi. Now, for me, this could be an upset. Like, Alencar minus 225 favourite. I actually think that's probably about right, if I'm being honest. Like, if she was around minus 400, that's where I'd be saying. Again, like I said with Ardeline, that would be a little bit sketchy. Carnelossi's a powerhouse. She's got raw power. She's got power in her hands. She's aggressive, in your face, and she wants to come in there and hurt you. Her physique is insane as well, like very muscular. Like I say, she's got a powerful physique to go with a powerful game. But the thing is with Carnelossi, if that doesn't work out and if she can't get you out of there, then she can be a little bit limited if she's facing somebody that's well-rounded, which Alencar is. Now, Alencar is going to be at a disadvantage from a striking perspective, but the biggest gap in skill here by a mile is the jiu-jitsu. If Alencar gets on top of Carnelossi, especially if Carnelossi is just thrown like a 10-20 punch combination to get Alencar out, and Alencar's just sort of weathered it, got a hold of her body lock, tripped her down to the mat, then look, Alencar is going to have a massive amount of success on the ground here. So it comes to be one of those questions. Does this fight end up on the mat at some point, or does it end up on the mat regularly? I'm leaning with yes. I've got some concerns over Alencar's defense striking. I've got some concerns over her gas tank as well, but I've also got the same concerns with Carnelossi. Gas tank, but also Carnelossi's defense from the grappling perspective. But it's because that grappling side for me is the biggest gap in skill. Like, Alencar's a much better grappler than Carnelossi. Carnelossi is a much better striker than Alencar, if that makes sense. So for those reasons, I'm picking Talita Alencar to win this fight. And that's all for this episode of the podcast, the quick fire breakdowns. I actually quite enjoyed that, to be honest, even though, like I say, I'm a little bit under the weather, not feeling too well. So that's the reason why I have switched it up. But I did kind of enjoy that. But for anybody that is listening, thank you for tuning in, especially to those that listen week in, week out. I always appreciate you. If you're on one of the podcast platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, or any of the others, then come over to YouTube, our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/MMA Play 365. Leave a comment. Let me know if you've enjoyed the quick fire breakdowns, or if you do prefer the sort of long form, let me know that as well. It'd be good to get some feedback. And yeah, drop a comment, let me know, have a conversation, tell me who your favourite underdog is, your favourite parlay, whatever that might be. I always try my best to get round to everybody on YouTube. Some weeks it doesn't happen, unfortunately. I am busy with other aspects that are working within the sport of mixed martial arts, but I always try my best. Apologies if I never do get back to you. It's not that I'm being ignorant, it's just that times just fell short for that week. But one last time, if you're wanting to jump into the action this weekend, then make sure you do so at MMAplay365.com. Something for every type of gambler. We've got AI with Bayes AI. We've got professional handicapper betting advice that all comes within one subscription. It's super affordable as well. Our ethos is we want you to make your money back as quickly as you possibly can from what you spend with us, so then you can start profiting on top of your bets. And that's why the product is super affordable. $5 for one event, $10 a month, or $99 for an entire year. That's all at MMAplay365.com. I'm Newsome. Thanks for listening. I'll see you again next week.